Derrick Rose became the youngest MVP in NBA history at just 22 years old. He was supposed to be the future of basketball, the player who'd carry Chicago back to greatness, the player who could challenge LeBron James, the player who could dominate the NBA for the next decade. Then, in a matter of seconds, everything changed. How did a kid from Chicago become the youngest MVP ever? Why did an entire city believe he was the next Michael Jordan? And how did one of the most exciting careers in NBA history disappear almost overnight? This isn't the story of a champion. This is a story of what might have been. Because Derrick Rose didn't fail. His body failed him. And that's what makes his story one of the most heartbreaking in sports history. Derrick Rose wasn't just from Chicago. He was Chicago. Born and raised on the city's south side, Rose grew up surrounded by basketball culture. The city had been searching for a new hero ever since Michael Jordan left. And as Rose began dominating high school basketball, people started to believe they had found the one. Every gym he played in was packed. Every game felt like an event. Chicago wasn't just watching a prospect, it was watching hope. But could a hometown kid really handle the pressure of becoming Chicago's next basketball icon? In 2008, the Chicago Bulls selected Derrick Rose with the first overall pick. It felt like destiny. The hometown kid was coming home. Most rookies need years to adjust. Rose looked ready immediately. His speed was unbelievable. His explosiveness looked impossible. Defenders knew what he had wanted to do. They just couldn't stop it. By the end of his rookie season, Rose had won Rookie of the Year. The NBA had found its next superstar. But becoming a star was only the beginning. Could he become the player capable of carrying Chicago back to a championship? Every season, Rose improved. More points, more confidence, more responsibility. Soon, he wasn't just one of the NBA's brightest young players. He was becoming one of its best players. Then came the 2010-11 season, the year everything changed. How does a 22-year-old become the youngest MVP in NBA history? Rose was unstoppable. Night after night, he attacked defenses with a speed a few players had ever possessed. He wasn't playing with a super team. He was surrounded by multiple Hall of Famers. Yet somehow, he carried Chicago to the best record in the NBA. At just 22 years old, Derrick Rose won the MVP award. The youngest player to ever do it. The city erupted. Chicago had finally found a superstar. For the first time since Jordan, Bulls fans genuinely believed they could win another championship. There was only one problem. One player stood in the way. LeBron James. The Bulls and Miami Heat were on a collision course. Rose versus LeBron, Chicago versus Miami, the NBA's brightest young star versus the league's biggest superstar. This wasn't just a playoff series, it felt like a battle for the future of the NBA. And although the Heat would win, many believed Rose's time was coming. He was only 22 years old, his best years were ahead of him, or so everyone thought. What nobody knew was the defining moment of Rose's career was less than a year away. April 28, 2012, Game 1 of the playoffs. The Bulls were comfortably ahead. Rose drove towards the basket, planted his foot, and collapsed. No contact, no collision, just sudden pain. The arena felt silent. Fans immediately knew something was wrong. An ACL tear, season over, playoffs over, and although nobody knew it yet, the MVP version of Derrick Rose was gone. Could he ever become that player again? Rose worked and worked and worked. He attacked rehab the same way he attacked defenders. But every time progress appeared, another setback followed, another injury, another surgery, another season disrupted. The player who once seemed unstoppable was now fighting simply to stay on the court. This is what makes Rose's story so painful. Most players decline after their prime. Rose never got one. At 22 years old, he had already reached MVP level. Most superstars don't hit their peak until 27 or 28. Nobody knows how good Derrick Rose could have become. Maybe multiple MVPs, maybe championships, maybe one of the greatest careers ever. We'll never know. And that's the tragedy. But here's what many people get wrong. Derrick Rose's story isn't only about injuries. It's about resilience. Most players would have disappeared. Rose kept fighting. He reinvented himself, accepted smaller roles, and continued playing the game he loved. Then came one unforgettable night. In 2018, Rose scored 50 points. As the crowd stood and cheered, tears filled his eyes. And for one moment, the basketball world saw the old Derrick Rose again. Not the MVP, not the superstar, just the man who refused to quit. Derrick Rose never became what many thought he would become. But maybe that's why people still love him, because his story isn't about perfection. It's about struggle. It's about loss. It's about getting knocked down over and over again and refusing to stay there. And in some ways, that's more inspiring than any championship. Derrick Rose reminds us that greatness isn't always measured by trophies. Sometimes it's measured by what you do after everything is taken away. But here's the question. If Derrick Rose never suffered that ACL injury, how great could he have become? Would he have won a championship, another MVP, maybe even become one of the greatest players in NBA history? Let me know in the comments. And if you've enjoyed this story, subscribe to Beyond the Score for more sports stories, rivalries, and legendary moments. I'll see you in the next one.